Yeah, that's right, Roxy. In San Bernardino County, fire officials report gusts well over 40 miles per hour overnight into the morning, and you can see the evidence of that. That is what caused this accident here on the 210 freeway in Rancho Cucamonga.
Welcome everybody, I'm Josh Mosman and this is Motocross Action's 2023 250 4-stroke shootout. We've been riding, racing, and testing most of these bikes for many months now, and once Yamaha gave us the unchanged YZ250F, we were finally able to deliver you our 250 shootout video. Although some of these bikes look pretty rugged, we did shine them up the best we could. We installed some fresh Dunlop MX33 tires and used ODI's MX Pro V2 lock-on grips aboard their Podium Flight handlebars across the board on all bikes. We take great pride in our testing process, and although this video was filmed with pro riders on a windy day at Glen Helen, the results didn't come from this day. The shootout results come from our months of racing and testing weekly with pros, intermediates, and vet riders of all shapes and sizes. Yes, we listen to the opinions of test riders we trust, and we calculate the results based on the performance and value of each stock bike, considering durability, engine performance, and handling to be top priority. And before we dig into each bike, I want to let you know that we have an even more detailed shootout article with dyno charts and more coming in the magazine soon. You can get a 1-year subscription to Motocross Action for just $19.99, and the bonus is Rocky Mountain ATV MC. They will send you a $25 e-gift card to shop with online, so basically you're making money on the deal. First up in the lineup is the GasGas MC250F. For 2023, the GasGas was neglected, not receiving the new frame or engine that the KTM and Husky got. This means that GasGas is still using the chromoly steel frame and 250F engine that KTM had been running for a long time and was well liked by MXA and many other riders. On the dyno, the GasGas MC250F peaks at 43.45 horsepower at 13,800 RPM. It hits torque of 21.1 pound-feet of torque, and it retails for $9,199. The best part about the GasGas is that it gives you an option to choose to buy a first-year model KTM or Husky, or go with the tried and true KTM platform while the Austrians work out the kinks on the new bike. The GasGas is a friendly bike that most riders can get comfortable with. The chromoly steel frame is known for being compliant and squatting more under acceleration when compared to the new chassis of the 23 KTM and Huskies. Plus, the GasGas is the lightest bike in the class at 217 pounds, which is 10 pounds lighter than Yamaha and Suzuki, and it's 11 pounds lighter than Kawasaki. Next up, Yamaha. The Yamaha YZ250F is a popular bike. It has been very successful with star racing Yamaha in the pro ranks, and it offers a friendly power character that is easy to feel good on. 2023 is the last year that Yamaha will have this generation 250F, as next year it will receive the all-new platform that the YZ450F has this year. On the dyno, the Yamaha peaks out at 42.11 horsepower at 12,500 RPM, and it has a peak torque of 19.8 and a retail price of $8,599. Thanks to the backwards engine and straight downdraft intake design, the YZ250F produces a strong bottom end power on the track. It's responsive coming out of corners and easily gets going. The bottom end focused power band does require extra shifting, but it makes it easier to ride for those who don't like to rev their bike to the moon. Plus, the Yamaha comes stock with the ability to customize your mapping via the smartphone Yamaha Power Tuner app. The Yamaha is also stable in straightaways and great for rough tracks when you're going wide open. The YZ250F, no, it doesn't turn the sharpest or maneuver the quickest. However, in a weird way, this is actually one of its strengths. The KYB suspension and SSS forks handle bumps well. Yes, we can make changes to the Yamaha to get it to turn better, but those changes usually sacrifice stability. Most of our test riders accept the fact that the YZ250F isn't the best for sharp turns, but they know they can make up the difference in the faster and rougher sections. Next up, Suzuki. Although we've been criticizing Suzuki for a long time, the RMZ 250 actually isn't as old as most people think. The Suzuki 250 is the most affordable bike in the class, and it's our test rider Brian Medeiros' favorite bike. On the dyno, the Suzuki peaks out at 39.2 horsepower at 12,400 RPM. It has a peak torque of 18.8, and it retails for $7,899. In 2019, the RMZ 250 got an updated frame, updated Kawasaki forks, a bigger front brake rotor, dual injectors, a new shock, a revised cylinder head, and new plastic. All of these updates made the bike significantly better, except for the brutally stiff KYB forks. The changes to the 2019 did make an extra 2 horsepower on the dyno, but the power band is still very low. The only good part of this engine is that because the power is positioned low, it's easier to ride for those beginners and novices like the YZ250F. The best part about the Suzuki is how affordable it is. Yes, the retail price is just below 8 grand, but most of the time you can find new Suzukis at the dealer for much less. Now that Ken Roczen is back on yellow, we're betting more riders will try to save money and give yellow a try. Next up, KTM. The 250 SXF has an all-new chassis and engine for 2023, and we go in depth about both of these things in our magazine and on our website. The crux of the story for this bike is that KTM searched for more bottom-end grunt with their engine, and they searched for more stability with this chassis. On the dyno, the KTM peaks at 45.2 horsepower at 13,100 RPM, and it has a peak torque of 21.1 pound-feet, and it has an MSRP retail price of $9,999. KTM has been strong on horsepower for a while now, known for its big bore, short stroke engine philosophy. With an even bigger bore and shorter stroke inside of the cylinder for 23, KTM gained even more horsepower. The new KTM also has a massive gap underneath the seat that you can stick your hand through, kind of like Superman seat grab handles. This opens up the airbox, improves airflow in the intake, and improves power. However, after having the same top-end focused engine since 2016, we expected the new KTM 250 engine to have a stronger bottom-end feel like the YZ250F. Unfortunately, it still didn't get there. Because it has a smooth and linear pull, the bottom end is deceiving and doesn't feel as exciting as the Yamaha or even the Honda CRF 250. However, when you're in a drag race, those high RPM, horsepower numbers, and the torque numbers pull this KTM 250 SXF away from the competition. Also, the new KTM 250 SXF soaks up the sharp braking bumps better than it did before. Next up, Husqvarna. The Husqvarna FC250 is the two-time reigning champion in the 250 class for Motocross Action's 250 4-stroke Shootout, and we've loved the KTM shared engine, chassis, and suspension, and we actually preferred the lowered suspension platform that the Husky has had for the past 2 years. On the dyno, the Husqvarna peaks at 44.76 horsepower at 12,800 RPM, and it hits a peak torque of 21.2 pound-feet of torque with a retail price of $10,099, making it the most expensive bike in this class. The FC250 still comes with the lowered suspension concept that we've appreciated on this bike for the last 2 years. The WP Exact air forks, they are 10 mil shorter. The shock shaft is shortened and the linkage ratio is revised, which helped bring this bike down about an inch at the seat. With the all-new frame, subframe for 2023, both KTM and Husky, they sit taller in the pits and they ride taller on the track. The Husky is great for turning, making it easy to find your line no matter how rough it is. The Belleville washer equipped Brembo hydraulic clutch is strong, and it uses the ultra durable clutch basket and primary gear that are CNC machined out of steel into one piece to further boost durability. For reference on how durable the Husky, KTM, and GasGas clutch baskets are, aftermarket clutch companies don't even make baskets for these three brands. Also, Yamaha, they copied this design on their new YZ250F. Also, the Brembo brakes that come on these three bikes stop exceptionally well. Next up, Kawasaki. Besides the white and the orange bikes, Kawasaki is the only other manufacturer that made changes for 23. The KX250 engine received changes to the intake valves, the piston crown, the transmission gained a longer first gear and a fine-tuned second gear. The header pipe, it was lengthened by 100 mil to boost the bottom end torque. The flywheel, it was made heavier to keep momentum up, and the intake was made straighter with a repositioned fuel injector. The ECU timing, it was updated, and other small changes were made for durability as well. On the dyno, the Kawasaki KX250 peaks at 44.6 horsepower at 13,290 RPM. It also hits a pound-feet of torque of 21.2, and somehow, even with a sizable list of updates, they only raised the price $100, making the KX250 the third lowest price point buy at just $8,499. Comparing the 22 and 23 KX250 models, the best way to explain the changes is that the 23 bike feels like last year's bike, only with an aftermarket exhaust system on it. It's not as fast off the crack of the throttle, but in the mid and up range, it's definitely stronger, pulling horsepower right next to the KTM and Husqvarna on the dyno. On the track, the KX250 isn't quite as easy to get into the meat of the power, but once you're there, it runs well. We also like that the KX250 has adjustable foot pegs, making it easier for taller riders to customize their ride. Next up, Honda. The 2023 Honda CRF250 didn't receive any changes for this year, but the engine and chassis were all new last year. On the dyno, the Honda peaks at 41.72 horsepower at 12,000 RPM, and it hits 20.3 pound-feet of torque, and it retails for $8,199, making it the second lowest price point buy in the class. Honda completely flipped the script when they introduced their new CRF250 last year, switching the engine philosophy from a top-end only machine that had to be ridden like a 125 two-stroke to a new bottom-end mid-range engine that is designed to ride like the popular YZ250F power band. Like the Yamaha, the dyno numbers for the Honda aren't impressive. They're actually lower than the 21 CRF250 on peak horsepower and torque. But peak torque numbers and peak horsepower numbers aren't the end-all be-all of stats. More important than dyno numbers is where the power is positioned on the curve. The 2021 and earlier model rode like a 125, and unless you revved it to the moon, you couldn't go anywhere. Now, the CRF250 power window is usable for everybody, not just pros who ride wide open. Plus, this bike dropped major weight last year, making it 219 pounds, the second lightest bike in the class. Before I share the results, I have to let you know that MXA tests bikes year-round. Each manufacturer represented here loans their bike to us for the year, and we don't stop riding these bikes after the shootout. They continue to get raced, and we use the data learned on these bikes for other magazine articles and videos. Coming in 7th place is the Suzuki RMZ250. It's a little hard to capitalize on the affordable price point because the forks are so stiff that it's hard to ride this bike before getting them resprung and revalved. Many MXA test riders have had their brains jumbled by the harsh suspension on the RMZ250. Although the RMZ250 has a strong bottom end power, it's so low on peak power that every other brand pulls away down the straightaway. Coming in 6th place is the Honda CRF250. Unfortunately, this Honda chassis is very rigid and it is not helped by the ultra stiff Showa forks that come stock. We appreciate the stronger bottom end power that the CRF250 has now, allowing it to run with the YZ250F down the straights. However, when the track gets rough, you'll be able to hold on to the throttle longer with the Yamaha or Austrian bikes. The Honda is harder to hold on to. Plus, Honda spec'd a 1.1 radiator cap, which is definitely not strong enough for durability. Coming in 5th place is the Kawasaki KX250. Kawasaki has been going round and round with their KX250 in search of more power, but we're still stuck on the handling and we've had a hard time with this frame since 2021. The bike understeers on corner entrance, which makes it harder to feel comfortable and rev the engine like it was designed to be rev. If you're constantly making mistakes, you won't be able to carry momentum needed to let this engine shine. The 2023 Kawasaki KX250 engine is certainly stronger than the 2022 model, but the chassis did not make any improvements. Set aside money for a revalve on the suspension, and other complaints with this bike that we have continued to have is durability. We always find cracks in the stock plastic on this bike, and you have to be very careful not to strip any bolts on a Kawasaki. Coming in 4th place is the GasGas MC250F. The biggest complaint with this bike is its soft suspension valving. GasGas uses the WP Exact air forks and 42 shock spring, which suits lighter weight riders. The valving is also suited more towards novice level riders, while most fast riders feel uncomfortable with how soft it is. The GasGas also isn't as precise coming into corners because of the forged aluminum triple clamps. They flex more, giving it a vague feeling on corner entry when compared to the same bike with aftermarket Luxon or Ride Engineering triple clamps. Also, with a closed off airbox and no map switch on the handlebars, the GasGas is more mellow with a less exciting throttle response. More things we don't appreciate about this bike: the spokes come loose far too quick, the rear brake spring snaps easily, and the shock preload spring deteriorates fast. Coming in 3rd place, the Yamaha YZ250F. At 227 pounds, the YZ250F is one of the heaviest bikes in the class, only lighter than the KX250. It also has the worst ergonomics out of the group. The foot pegs are too close to the seat dips down too low, and it doesn't have enough foam. We like to add Works Connections lowered foot peg mounts on this bike, and they help fix this issue big time, but they don't come stock. Another complaint: this bike has the weakest electric starter and battery setup in the class. It's rare that this bike will start up the first time you press the button. It's also extremely loud, especially with the intake positioned right in front of the seat, and it's been even louder since it got a new vented airbox cover in 2021. The Yamaha has a lot of great qualities, but not enough to beat the next two bikes. Coming in second is the Husqvarna FC250. The Husky won the last 2 years in a row for the benefits of its shorter suspension. The settings on the 1 inch shorter Husky were designed to mimic the feel of the KTM, but this year they feel softer than usual. For many novices and vet riders, the softer settings are preferred, but this shootout is based on an overall performance, and the general consensus from our testers was that the stock Husky was too soft. Plus, remember the grab handles I mentioned on the KTM? Those are completely closed off on the Husky, meaning there's still still less air going to the airbox on this bike. Yes, it comes with a stock optional vented airbox cover that comes from the factory, and that's how we tested and dynoed this bike, but the FC250 engine, it still wants more air. A few complaints that cross over for this bike and the KTM are that traction control mutes the power way too much, the radiator cap is difficult, the spokes still come loose until they finally take set after a few hours, and some of the bikes, they actually have a faulty linkage bearing that is hindering the rear suspension. You have to check that one out. Coming in first is the 2023 KTM 250 SXF. The 250 SXF isn't as easy to turn as it was before. It did gain weight, going from 218 to 224 pounds. Yes, the spokes still come loose and the ECU is locked now, which we don't like about these new bikes. But despite these complaints, this bike wins as the best 250F in the class. Yes, it's heavier than Honda and GasGas, but it's still lighter than Yamaha and Kawasaki. The power is strong yet smooth, and the stock bike handles well without hassle. We love KTM's handling, we love its power, we love its ability to stop quickly, and we love its ability to take abuse and keep going. Across the board, after listening to opinions from many test riders, the KTM 250 SXF was the clear winner. As mentioned at the top of the video, be sure to subscribe to Motocross Action magazine and stay tuned for our 250 Shootout article, which will be coming soon. Also, subscribe to our YouTube channel to see more of our test videos, including our individual bike tests on each of these models, where we talk in depth about the pros and cons of each bike. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you in the next video.